Hi, I'm Veronica. I'm a somatic teacher and a therapist. Today, I would like to invite you to a short practice where you will get more connected to your natural breath. And this is important to know your natural rhythms of the breath and how the breath moves through your body. It might feel very useful in the moments when you're off balance, when you're overwhelmed with emotions. And there is more to that. You will also see that through the practice we're going to do, I will invite you to kind of trust that natural rhythm of your breath to direct your movement. So rather than directing your movement from your conscious mind, you will kind of trust that natural innate body intelligence to lead you through it. And that might bring you quite a different experience. You don't need any props for this practice, just something to lie down on. To begin with, you can roll yourself down onto the ground. And I always invite you to first take a moment to get accustomed to the idea that your body is now resting on the ground. So that might mean some micro movements or maybe some bigger movements. You might feel like stretching or maybe doing something else. But eventually, you're already registering the signals from all the sensory surfaces of your body, from all the sensors uh, that sensors of touch that you're actually resting your weight onto the ground. And that means that there's not that much holding from your muscles, not that much engagement from your muscles necessary. And then the second thing you can do is to really take your time to find the position of your feet. Somewhere where again there is that minimal effort from your muscles. So if you imagine now that you suddenly fell asleep, your legs would not splay out or drop anywhere, but would remain in the same place. So for every person, it's slightly different place, slightly different positioning. You can play around with that for a moment. And once you found that position where there is minimal muscular engagement in your legs, buttocks, in the belly, you can start directing your attention to a few things that mm, might be most obvious to feel right now. So one is that points of contact between the body and the floor and how your body rests on the ground. And maybe you are able to detect also how far away other parts of the body are from the ground. So where is your lower back in that setting, for example, or your shoulder blades, or the back of the neck. And this is your felt sense, so it's not something that you can do correctly or incorrectly. That's the way you perceive it. And the second thing you can start paying attention to is how your breath moves through your body. It's always easier if you feel it with touch as well. So maybe you prefer to place one hand somewhere on the chest and one hand somewhere on the belly, so that it's slightly easier to detect the moment when the hands move. because your belly or the chest or both move as you breathe in and as you breathe out. And you're not trying to change your breath now, or direct it, or control it in any way. You're not trying to direct it to any part of the body, make it bigger, longer, deeper, none of that. You're getting more intimate with your own breath. You're observing how it flows if you let it flow as it wishes in this moment. And as you spend some time observing the breath and the movement of the breath through the body, you might start picking up more details, more fine sensations. So perhaps you could feel underneath your hands that the chest moves, that the rib cage expands, and that this expansion is not one-dimensional or two-dimensional, but actually it's really in a 3D, it's a 360-degree expansion. Maybe you notice some relationship between the chest cavity and the abdominal cavity, how they move in relation to one another as you breathe. And notice if you're putting that attention into your breath, if that causes any tension, physical tension in your body. If there is any sense of frowning or clenching the teeth, or maybe tightening something in your legs or in the pelvis as you're trying to concentrate on the breath. And see if you can let go of that really kind of effortful, the effortful focus, yeah, and notice what is there to notice without searching for anything in particular, but think of it as like having an open attention, like kind of curiosity to notice whatever arises, but without searching for anything in particular. And that usually will bring a little bit of release. Okay. Perhaps you might notice not the first time you do it, but maybe on the 100th time you do it, that there is some relation between the movement of your breath through the body and the position, the movement of your spine and of your pelvis. And it's not something very obvious. It's not a gross movement. It's not something really big and clear. It's subtle. So noticing subtle sensations take practice. It takes time. It might not happen the first time you try it. So perhaps there is that sense that something moves, that the lower back position changes as you breathe, or that your pelvis position changes as you breathe. Or maybe you don't notice anything at all. And it's actually irrelevant for that exercise whether you notice it or not. Okay. And then we're going to make one movement that is still rather subtle. And there are really many ways you can make this movement, but today in particular, we're going to look into how your natural rhythm of the breath could dictate that movement. The movement I'm talking about is the rotation of the pelvis forward and backward. It has nothing to do with lifting the pelvis. It's rolling the back of the pelvis on the ground. And it's a super, super gentle movement in this case, at least. You could make it bigger, but for today, the smaller, the better. And that movement could be initiated in many ways. You could imagine you have handles on each side of your pelvis and you're rolling that pelvis as if it was a rolling pin on the ground. You could direct your attention down the spine all the way to the tailbone and imagine that the tailbone is drawing a vertical line between 12 and 6 o'clock on an imaginary clock, which would be hanging somewhere on the wall at your feet. You could even move your knees in space. There are really many ways you could get to that. But today, let it be dictated by the breath. So you might place both of your hands now on your abdomen. And this time, kind of observe when you make an inhale, if that inhalation could invite your pelvis to rotate a little bit more towards the feet and your lower back to arch a little bit, so get a bit farther away from the ground. And then when you exhale, the exhalation is passive. Your belly comes back towards the ground. Your lower back comes back towards the ground. Your pelvis kind of comes back more towards your face. And notice if there is any possibility that this movement is directed by your natural rhythm of the breath. So rather than thinking of making the movement and matching the breath to the movement, breathe as you were breathing before and let that inhalation tilt your pelvis and let that exhalation allow your lower back to sink towards the mat. So it's your breath that initiates the movement. The movement matches the breath, not the other way around. And check if that breath remains the same as it was before, that it's not any bigger, any louder, stronger. If it can stay the same as it was, but and your movement will be matching that breath. And that's super, super subtle movement. And if you let the breath do its job, it is actually effortless. You don't need to tense the muscles to make that movement happen. The breath itself will make this movement happen. So you can check, am I tensing my buttocks and I'm tensing my legs? Am I tensing my face? Am I allowing the breath to move my body. And remember, you're not searching for big movements. It might be something super subtle, but still perceptible. Especially if you have your hands on the hips, you might feel it. Or if you had the hands underneath your lower back, you would feel that that back is kind of squashing your hands when you exhale. And the hands feel a bit lighter when you inhale. So through this, you know that this is happening. Okay, and at any point, if it feels like it's really an effort, you're getting lost, you're getting confused, it starts kind of activating you, irritating you, remember you can always take a rest. You want it to be a pleasant experience. So if it's something that makes you annoyed, activated, maybe you want to make a break, maybe you want to something that some kind of movement or take some position that feels kind of soothing. So remember, this is always an option. And you can also try a different version of it. And maybe that one will actually work better for you. So it's always good to try. And you could lift your feet off the ground and cross the ankles over. This is mostly so that your legs kind of don't fall out to the sides. It keeps it together, but it doesn't mean that your legs need to be tense. They can be still quite relaxed, your feet. And thinking of the same kind of principle that when you inhale, your belly is slightly ballooning, and that means that it kind of pushes your thighs slightly away. But slightly means really slightly, at most to the point when your knees are above the hips. You know that they're farther because it's gonna feel like a huge arch in your back and like quite an effort for your muscles. Yeah? So it's something subtle. Something subtle. When you take an exhale, your belly falls towards the ground together with your lower back. And because of that, your thighs also kind of with their own weight fall more closer towards you. So it's the inhale that moves the legs slightly away from you. And on the exhale, they drop wherever they comfortably drop. And it's a tiny movement. And again, it's not the movement that starts from your legs, the mechanical movement of your legs then you try to match the breath to that. It's really the movement that starts with your breath. It's the breath that makes the legs move a little bit away. And as you exhale, the legs on their own, completely passively return. And again, the movement matches your breath, not the other way around. Let the breath in, move your legs away from you, so slightly down towards the mat. And let the exhale make your thighs fall closer towards your belly. There's no right or wrong here. There's only your own rhythm of the breath. And everything happens with minimal effort. As little as possible. So that the face remains relaxed, the jaws remain relaxed, The legs remain relaxed. This is the breath itself that moves the legs slightly away, and the exhale allow them to return. Perhaps there is something soothing in this movement, in which case you can carry on for quite a while. And if you feel that it actually requires a lot of attention and you need a break, you can land with one foot on the mat, with the other foot on the mat. And maybe again, notice where is your lower back in relation to the ground, how your different parts of the body rest on the ground now. Do they feel any heavier or more spread out than in the beginning? How do you perceive the breath moving through your body? And you're not searching for any change. You were not really trying to change anything. We only wanted to observe and get more into those internal sensations. And whenever you had enough, maybe again you want to make some bigger movement, like stretching or yawning. You can spend quite a while lying on the side, resting here. Before you move back up. So, as I said, it might feel like quite a lot to pay attention to, and you might feel perhaps a bit frustrated that you're not feeling all those things I was mentioning. So, it really doesn't matter so much, so long as you felt your breath and you could match the breath and the movement. This is the purpose. And perhaps with time, you're going to start catching more nuanced details. And this practice might have a kind of calming effect. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. You can let me know in the comments how it worked out for you. And if you'd like to know more about how you could work with your body, through your body, to start regulating your nervous system, building up resilience to all the ups and downs in life, I invite you to join my mailing list. I send out a newsletter with kindness every Monday, and I write much more about how the nervous system works, how the emotions work, and so on. And I also post one video every Monday. So I'll see you next week.